strategy that I'm going to teach you today is one under active learning. So we're going to do the active learning to learn about it, okay? Okay, and hopefully I'm not just repeating a lot of what you already know. Part of the reason why we're doing Think, Pair, Share is because there's so many alternative ways of doing it. So if you are doing the basic way, you can start modifying. You're at that stage where you can modify. Okay, Think, Pair, Share is on your buff sheet, the yellow kind of ivory sheet. It can be applied to diagnostic assessment. In other words, when the students come in and you want to know how much they know about something, you can tap into it with a 5-minute or 10-minute Think, Pair, Share. You can use it to approach the essential question. And our essential question today is, why active learning? Why TPS? You know, I kind of like the way I teach. What are they changing it up for? Okay, so we're going to kind of look at that. Engage students in thinking about that, okay, and check on understanding. How much are they getting? You know, we get in and we accomplish our class, but sometimes we don't really know if they've got it, every piece we want them to have. So the muddy point or the piece that we think might be weak, we can do a quick Think, Pair, Share. Okay, and a lesson closure. So you finish 5 minutes early. Time for a Think, Pair, Share. Okay, and the basic format of Think, Pair, Share is first students think independently, and they may jot down a couple things. Next, they pair with someone and they talk about what they just thought about, and they try to come up with the best thoughts between the two of them. Okay, and then the final part of it is sharing out whole group. So 2 of them get up and share, or they go to a chalkboard or a chalkless board, or they even use their phones. Some people are doing Think, Pair, Twitter now. So all different kinds of things. And in the last packet I give you, I'm going to give you many alternatives that you can start thinking about. And of course, the thing that I like about Think, Pair, Share is that you can make it your own. There's no set formula, except there has to be a thinking component. There has to be a small sharing component. It can be done in small group before it goes to the large group. That develops that safety net where kids are more likely to share out because they've thought about it, they've talked to somebody else about it, and now they feel confident to share what the group decided. So we're kind of like going through this. I didn't pull this down because most of you seem to be looking at your handout. But in the pair part, they take notes, they share them, and the teacher moves around and kind of eavesdrops. So you'll see me doing that. I'm trying to check in with you to see what you're talking about in a very casual way. So if I know you're spot on, or if you're struggling, or if there are things that I need to address after the share. And then the whole group sharing out is done together, so they're not afraid. And there's emphasis on key points that were brought out in the whole point. And you'll notice that I've put time parameters. You'll get a feel for this as you use it. Maybe you only want to do 1 minute for the independent work, 3 minutes for the paired work, and then the whole group, that is determined by the size of the group. So if I have 40 people in here, I've got to go through 20, let 20 people share. That's going to take longer. So maybe I want to put them in groups of 3, or even do double pair groups of 4. And you can do all those kind of things. That's what I like about Think, Pair, Share. Okay, so I'm going to have you do the first activity, and we're going to talk about some of the benefits, the pros and cons of Think, like any kind of active learning. Okay, and what do you think are some of the main things that people complain about when they switch to active learning? Or they feel kind of compelled to, and you should never feel compelled to. You should start out doing it in a way that you feel good about it and you're not overdoing it. Okay, before you talk to a partner, first thing I'd like you to do is jot down 2 things that you think would be beneficial about doing active learning or the Think, Pair, Share strategy. How would it benefit in your classroom? In the arts and sciences, in a math class, how would it benefit?
Do you want us to just do this independently? And write
Yeah,
down?
independently right now on the first box. And usually we take about 2 minutes to do this. So the first thing that comes to mind. And then what are 2 things that kind of make you hesitate, like, do I want to take that 10-minute chunk or 5-minute chunk out of my class?
Are the challenges more from the teacher's perspective or from
Could
the
be both, but like if you have a disabled kid, are they going to be able to do it in the capacity? Is that going to be threatening to them? Whatever, depending upon disability. Okay, and they don't have to be long descriptions of what you're thinking about, just a couple words or a phrase. Okay, I'd like you to turn to a partner and mention your 2 benefits and challenges and listen to theirs. And in the middle part, I want you to write down a combination of the 2 best and the 2 most difficult challenges. Out of the 4 things you talked about, what are the 2 most beneficial and 2 most challenging?
Well, yeah, there's definitely instructors that start to lose focus, and then it helps them problem solve.
Okay, could I have your attention? Everybody, attention. What you might want to do at this point, because everybody likes to talk, is use a computer timer. If you've said that you're going to give them 2 to 3 minutes, let the countdown begin. I didn't do that. I thought about it, but I didn't do it. Okay, so now we're going to share out. So we're just going to go around and have both of you just share out what are, each do 1 or somebody do both. But feel free to share out as you feel comfortable to do that. So, benefits and the pros and cons of it, sort of. Okay, go ahead.
I just wrote that. One of the benefits is it's an opportunity for the students to inform and correct each other. I thought that was a perfect way to do that, to say that. And then obviously it just keeps it more interesting instead of done by PowerPoint. So
Okay.
keeping it interesting is a benefit of active learning.
Okay. A benefit, a pro, and a con.
For the first one, I put this staying on track with the topics discussed.
Okay. And a conflict, or kind of like a con.
A con, large group, you have time constraints.
Okay, time constraints. And we've all got curriculums we've got to teach and get through. Okay?
Pros, everybody got to participate and voice their own opinions.
And kind of the challenging part.
There may be some students who have trouble verbalizing or are afraid of public speaking.
Exactly. Okay, and this is learning to step it up, and maybe this activity could become a positive. So we're going to try to look at those negatives and turn them into positive. What would you do with them? Okay?
So we were kind of talking about this positive, is that constant engagement.
Okay.
Like brain engagement, thinking about how to get the information really flowing.
And finding out if they really kind of know it, going around. Okay. Challenge?
So one of the things that hadn't occurred to me is coming up with the questions.
Yeah.
Because I teach English and psych, but she teaches biology, and it's just a little bit more difficult to ask,
Okay.
like, what does this mean?
Yeah. What is
really thought.
what is the essential question, or what is the idea, concept, theory, or whatever? Okay, go ahead.
Well, the pro is having students teach each other in terms of understanding knowledge and things like that.
And for me, the con was not enough time in the class.
Not enough time.
There's just, not even this much time is too much time.
Yeah, right. Okay, and over here?
Go ahead. Well, we said one of the benefits was that the class, this was like a way to get students to, like an icebreaker, get to know each other, and then they can have a study partner.
Right, study
alter,
partner.
because, sometimes they just kind of stay in their own shell, so this is just a good way when you're using Think, Pair, Share, and they know that they have to work with the partner, they get used to that process.
Exactly.
And the other was the time factor, was the,
Okay, the time factor and,
Positive thing would be that it would cause them to express their experiences verbally.
okay. Anything besides time that you can see as a conflict or, people being reticent and shy, or actually, rejecting it.
Well, one
Yeah.
of the things is sometimes you have a group and it simply does not gel.
Okay, it
People,
doesn't function.
they have 5 minutes together and they hate each other. And they're
Right. So, exactly. So what you might do is keep it to 2 if you can, and then to whole group, at first if you find conflict, yeah.
And the other one is developing soft skills.
Okay, soft skills,
Yeah,
communicating.
cooperation and-
Articulating the learning. If we don't talk about what we learn, it's still developing in our brain. We need to get it out there in words because that's when it happens that we hear it back and we kind of know. Okay, how many of you know the lessons from the geese? Okay. Sometimes I think geese are smarter than people. Does anybody know why they fly in a V formation?
no.
Okay.
Because they can.
Okay, this is read, write, pair, share. Notice how I play with this, and I use those words to help me to remember how I'm going to deliver it. Everybody got one? Anybody get 2? Okay, so the first 3 are done for you. To give an example, you don't have to do that. You could give them a reading passage and let them go right into interpreting it. But I thought by putting it, a couple examples there, it would shorten the activity and give them an example. Okay, so we know that as each goose flaps its wings, it creates uplift, and it has 71% greater flying range. So the thing we learn out of that is people who share a common direction and sense of community, they can get to where they want to go quicker. So working with somebody who uses Think, Pair, Share and exchanging ideas about what worked, what didn't work in math or English or whatever can warm that up and make it more supportive to do. Otherwise, you just drop the handouts, drop the idea, and go about teaching the way we always do. That's what we tend to do. Okay, second fact. When a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag, okay? And the lesson learned, if we have as much sense as a goose, we will stay in formation with those who are headed where we want to go. If we have a sense of goals, and we can share that with someone, we can get into formation and get there faster. Okay, and 3, when the lead goose tires, it rotates back into formation and another goose flies. So what do we learn? We learn it pays to take turns doing hard tasks. Sometimes you're the leader, sometimes you're the follower. Okay, and it's okay to trade that off. Okay? Okay, so I want you to read 4 and jot down right now what you think is the lesson learned. And also 5. Okay, the overall meaning at the bottom is, what do you get out of the whole 5 things? Now, we went through it fast, and students would have more time to do the interpretation. Okay, I want you to pair now and kind of like choose your best selection of how you would state these so that we can kind of go around and get lessons, okay? And think about how you'd apply this to your own curriculum. How would you take a read, a survey, write, pair, share, and adapt it?
What I find interesting is that they're not worried about catching up with their original team.
Right, right.
They just form another team, yeah. And sometimes you work with somebody and it just doesn't jive after a while, so you find another teacher to move on, or they're not ready to move on. Yeah. Okay, are we ready to share? Ready to share.
That timer's going off.
Yeah. Don't forget to use that computer timer. Okay, we're going to go around by pairs. Let's start over here this time. Hey, we're going to start over here at time. You might use a signal too if you don't want to use the computer thing, like peace, baby. Okay, go ahead. If you would share out number 4, what do you think was a lesson learned?
I put hearing what others have learned can help you learn.
Okay. And that was the kind of combined one that you came up with? Okay.
For number 4.
Yeah, for number 4.
You know, I originally just rewrote in my own paraphrase what the first, because we were both saying we were kind of having a hard time wrapping our mind around this until we started talking, and then it started,
So I guess that's the gist of it, because I literally, I had no clue what I just restated the same thing. Because I didn't understand the instructions. So when we started chatting, we're like, oh, I get it now.
See, now that's what students are going to do in your classroom.
And it really was. I'm like, huh? Oh, so we're supposed to relate this to how it relates back in the classroom, you know? So and then we started chatting about things, and we were even saying about to encourage those. It's actually sort of the opposite in the classroom. It really is those 2 or 3 people out of the group usurp the conversation and speak for others, where it's sort of usually those people in the front should be honking at the people in the back to be able to encourage them to speak. So chatting about that. But so I think the gist of it though is we actually paired together and we figured it out. Whereas individually we had no clue what we were doing. It's assignment, so it worked out well.
Okay, what lesson did you get?
I said teamwork for better result.
Okay, great. Better result with, group effort. What did you get? Oh, you. Did you have anything to add to that?
Not really, it's just it's easier to accomplish tasks when you're encouraging each other.
Yes, okay. Encouragement. Okay, go ahead.
We said that someone usually is a motivator in a group, so
that's important. Okay. And you?
So we talked a bit about just how to encourage as well, like, being encouraging to others and also just being careful with your words not to be discouraging.
Okay.
So like if you're always honking, hey, move faster versus saying, let's all work together.
Okay. Yours?
We're echoing everything everybody else is saying. It was just encouragement to keep going.
Yeah.
Keep working.
Okay, anything different back here?
Just communicating with the group.
Communicating with the group or the team that you're working with. Okay, and over here?
Don't classmates to keep up so they don't really slow class down either.
Right. Anything else?
Well, I think we just decided that combining info and ideas with others helps you improve and learn, and often they have different perspectives than you, in terms of
Okay.
accomplishing.
And if we're honking from behind, we need to make sure that it's encouraging, helpful, constructive, and supportive, okay? Because that'll, contribute to the team. Okay, and number 5. What'd you say about that one?
I feel asking for help can help you learn more and will eventually catch you up.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Maybe you didn't get to that one, and that's okay, because I'm just having you simulate enough of this so you kind of grasp the idea of how you could take a passage and let them work with it interpretively. Okay, anything you want to say about 5?
Well, we were talking, just saying, I just thought the interesting thing was that when one of these geese, don't make it, that the 2 that kind of bring them down to earth and then, or I don't know, bring them down to the ground, whether they're sick or they're dying, but that they come into another formation. They're not trying to catch up to their original group, and that, if one situation isn't successful, that, there's plenty of
other birds out there you
opportunities.
can team up with. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So they involved with each other's well-being and progress.
Okay, right.
Basically the same thing. Someone struggling, help them.
Okay, help them along.
Like we support each other through highs and lows, whatever happens.
Through highs and lows, because no matter what you do, you're going to have a few mistakes or lows, right? Okay, back in the corner back there, and then we'll come back here.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the goose. They are committed to each other and do not give up on a teammate. If necessary, they will join another team to survive.
Kind of the same thing. They feel committed to their classmates and want them to succeed.
Okay, and up here?
I said change it when things as it was change as needed.
Okay, and?
The idea of being a helper, I think.
Okay.
It's a great word that you can.
Okay, and if you ever want to pull this up and have kids do this, just, of course, go to Google and type in Lessons from the Geese. It's kind of neat to see the whole passage together. Okay, the overall meaning then, the theme of the whole thing. What do you think? Anybody want to share out what they think about that? Yes.
Strong and positive relationships among students help them all fly.
Okay, very good. Oh, that's a nice one. That'd be a nice poster in the room, wouldn't it? Definitely. Okay.
Yeah, you're just intimidating all the rest of us.
Okay, in your packet, real quickly, we are running out of time, so that big packet that you just got, the active learning packet, it kind of goes through some of the things like what practicing teachers are already doing, what research is doing, some of the challenges that you may have mentioned and think about. I mean, they're obviously there. And I thought it would be kind of interesting if we would have had time on page 2 to think about challenges and possible solutions. But as you work in teams, you could do something like this. And many of you mentioned, how do you cover the same amount of material? Well, flipped classroom is one of those things. Students preparing part of the Think, Pair, Share before they come in. They've already surveyed or read the passage. And so you can reduce the time that they actually interact with it in class. So you'll find ways to work with that. Okay, on the next page, on page 3, just some things like why we should engage in active learning despite its challenges. You'll see some things here, and some of them have already been mentioned. It requires thinking, planning, and reflecting, however, as we plan our lessons. And as you do it more, you get quicker with it, and it requires less kind of like innovative thinking. You get very creative with it. How do we get started? Well, you create an open and safe environment for it first, or they will reject it. You'll set a goal for the activity, or an essential question, or a problem solution idea. Choose the right exercise or strategy, and you may fail a couple times, but you'll get into the groove of what really works, and the students will work with you on that. Identify preparation for the exercise. What do students need? What do I need to make it really come off? And consider links to other class elements, like how does this activity fit with the pacing and the flow of the class? And don't make it overwhelming. Don't make it a 20-minute activity. You know, just use it, like I mentioned in the very beginning, as a way to address the essential question, a way to close the class out, or a way to just stop and understand, or check for understanding. Okay, on page 4, plan the introduction of the activity, and how will you judge whether or not you've been successful with it? Has it been worthwhile? Obtain support, and then just do it. You learn by doing. We're often so afraid to do something new because it's going to, you know, just muck up our lesson, but it doesn't have to, okay? It, you know, like it's a way of throwing it out there and saying, how could I snowball this? How could I make it better? Consider using planning time differently when you plan. You may spend less time creating well-organized lectures and be able to work a couple activities in where you're really checking to see if they've listened, if they've learned, if they've, you know, filtered it through somebody else so that they're thinking about it and they walk out of your room thinking about it. Okay, some additional tips down below. If you're just beginning, don't try to do it every day. Don't try to do it every lesson. You know, start slow with it, chunk it off. Don't do long pieces of it. You know, have some success with it in the beginning, and work with somebody who gets excited about it too, because it'll help carry the momentum over. Okay, there's some Think, Pair, Share that I included here at the back of different ways that teachers have developed the basic concept into bigger ideas, like double Think, Pair, Share, where you use groups of 4 and it moves a little bit faster. Mingle, Pair, Share, Sticky Note Storm. Okay, on the next page, Sage and Scribe, Inside-Outside Circles, Quiz, Quiz, Trade, Flash, Write Around, Think, Pair, Walk. You can get them up and have them moving around the class, especially if they're, you know, kind of a hyper class. And on the back side, number 8, Think, Pair, Tweet. You can have them do things over the internet. This can be done in online learning too. On the back, there's several more. So you can create, and what those keywords do is they still have the individual thinking, sharing small, and then sharing large, as long as you keep those 3 ideas, but you create the words that help you remember the key things in the activity that you're going to hit. Okay? So, any quick questions or comments? What do we have time-wise? 3 minutes. Okay, any quick questions? Yeah.
In preparing for this and the research, is there any research that indicates what roughly the ideal number of students in a classroom that's best for active learning strategies?
I think that most classrooms tend to run, between 20 and 30, right? Now here at Lakeland, it's sometimes smaller.
Yeah, I mean, I got some 65 and 70 in a few classes, and it's a struggle because how do you do that in a classroom?
That would be very difficult because then you're talking about the sharing groups are like 5 and 6 and you just don't get the individuals talking that well sometimes, yeah.
One way that I address this, actually at Tri-C in a psych class, there was like 75 students. I created pods from the very beginning, so you have like the same group members, and then I said, hey, meet with your pod, and that becomes your think, peer, share.
Right. Yeah.
And when I taught humanities out west and we had sections nearing 40, sometimes, unfortunately, you don't have time to get to every group, and so sometimes it's just being cognizant of, okay, I'm going to do groups 1, 3, 5, 7 today. I'll do 2, 4, 6, 8. You don't say that out loud, but you're juggling that, and that helps.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question for her.
Sure.
So what do you do when a pod doesn't gel?
You move over to their area and encourage the conversation.
You don't change up the pods?
I do if that doesn't work. Yeah, there are a couple ways.
See, I like to change up the pods because I like people learning from other people.
It's just too hard with like 70 people. Yeah.
You can also use discussion board to get them through the thinking stage and the pair. They can pair up with someone. You can throw them out there to do the whole group too, but you could bring the first 2 stages into your classroom and just do the group, tell out instead of doing all that front work. But sometimes you really are looking for what they're grasping in the first 2 parts of it too, so you have to do the whole activity. But you can make larger groups, it's just that they don't get as much individual time talking. And the whole thing is to get them talking with other students in the class intellectually about the ideas, but you do have to monitor. Now you're a good teacher, so I know you were doing what you're supposed to be doing and on track, but if you have students that kind of like zone out, you have to kind of like mingle and make sure they're getting the right thing and correct errors if their thinking isn't right. So hopefully you'll try some of this and hopefully you'll find somebody, you won't think it's just a gimmick or something that doesn't really work, because it really does. You'll see students liking it and looking forward to it. And because you can modify it, you have major control over what you want to do with it. And I like it for like an English class, interpretive reading, to let them kind of build some conceptual thinking with it. In math, let them talk over something to see how much they know about it before you actually go back and review it. Okay, on your way out, I just want you to pick up some puns for fun. Have nothing to do with active learning, but you could make it an active learning activity.